The Four Nations rosters were finalized, and the Tampa Bay Lightning have 3 new additions to them. They also have a game against the Sharks at Amalie Arena coming up. That's what we'll be discussing on today's episode of Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Josh Sperber here, thanking all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, then this is the show for you. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we are going to get started by talking about tonight's game. Lightning and Sharks live at Amalie Arena. The first time Tampa has taken on San Jose in this season. The really only stat that the Sharks have an advantage of over the Lightning is the penalty kill percentage, but the Lightning were one of the top 5 teams in the entire NHL in penalty kill for the month of November. So that Lightning penalty kill percentage currently 21st in the league. It is on the rise, and I think that is a big key, as it is in all games. Lightning are a team that really emphasize special teams. And with their offensive firepower, they have a big important stress on those power plays. It's one reason Nikita Kucherov spent most of the offseason, lobbying for more practice time. Most of the preseason practices, just trying to get more practice on those power plays. It's something the Lightning greatly improved in the month of November. And now they start off December with hopefully a good power play and penalty kill against the San Jose Sharks, who come into this game doing a little better than people expected, but still tied in points as one of the worst teams in the league, though they do have 2 and 4 more games played than the Kraken and Ducks in their division. They have the same amount of points as them at 23. Only the Blackhawks and Predators have fewer with 18 and 20 respectively. So the Sharks not being dead last for them is an upside in a lot of people's eyes. And a lot of that has to do with their strong rookie class, including Calder Trophy favorite Macklin Celebrini, who has provided some hope for the future in San Jose. And the talent that the Sharks have is not lost on players like Braden Point.
It's the first time you're going to play these guys. They got, him and some other guys with a ton of skill. I think just try to take away their time and space. They're very creative with the puck and they get chances, and the way they are heads up and see the ice and the talent they have to make the plays is really impressive. So I think you just try to take away time and space, and I don't think you ever shut those guys down totally, but hopefully we can limit the amount of chances they get.
The him that Braden was referring to there was Macklin Celebrini, rookie sensation for the Sharks, and a guy who is picked by many, including myself, as of now, to win the Calder Trophy. He's missed time with injury this year, but the most recent first overall pick, 8 goals and 7 assists. And, he's a guy that teams are going to have to start keying on. And the Lightning, I think, are going to be one of those teams tonight. That first line with Granlund, Eklund, and Celebrini. Granlund will be representing Finland in the Four Nations. That is... the first line forwards, I think, is a pretty key matchup, I think, for these teams, because for both of them, those first liners provide the majority of the team's offense. The Lightning have been able to get some extra help from second line guys such as Brandon Hagel and Anthony Cirelli, who we'll be talking about in the next segment. But the Sharks are a team that, in a lot of cases, their first line is really their end-all be-all. I'm not saying they don't have talent outside of that, because that would be wrong, but this is a team that is coming off a 3-game win streak, including 2 wins against the division rival Kraken and an OT victory over the red-hot Washington Capitals. So this is a Sharks team that the Lightning can't underestimate. And it was something that I liked seeing at practice today, that Kucherov looks like he's going to be a full go. Nick Paul looks like he's going to be a full go. Mitchell Chaffee was participating in practice, but he was in a red non-contact jersey. Even still, he didn't look like he was feeling any adverse effects of their injuries. So if anyone out there is thinking, you know what, this would be a good game to rest some top guys. It's just the Sharks. They're one of the worst teams in the league. Lightning can let Kucherov miss another game so he's rested for this West Coast road trip. That doesn't seem to be the way the Lightning are handling this Sharks game, and I think that is excellent. The last thing you want to do, especially if you're a playoff contending team like the Tampa Bay Lightning, is underestimate one of these young teams. Because you look at a young team like the Sharks, they are hungry to prove themselves in the NHL. They're hungry to prove the many doubters wrong about the team that just finished with one of the worst records in the NHL. And, they've got some star rookies. They've got some nice young players on that team. This is not a team that the Lightning can afford to underestimate, because the way that those younger teams beat you is exactly what I just said. You get underestimated by a team that is comfortable in their position in the standings and, ready to, and maybe they've got a big game coming up or something afterwards, or it's on a back-to-back, and they're like, you know what? The Sharks are a good team to rest guys. The Sharks want the Lightning to take them lightly. That is what they really feed off, and a big way for them to get some momentum. And that is another key for this game, is that the Lightning can't take this Sharks team lightly. And again, don't think they will. The Lightning are not usually a team that plays down to their opponents, and I don't expect them to do it against the San Jose Sharks. And just a lot of the Lightning's success does ride on Nikita Kucherov. I'd certainly like to see him play, but there is a long road trip coming up, and the Lightning do have some big opponents, some strong opponents. You've got two teams that I expect to be in the playoffs in the front end of it, in Vancouver and Edmonton. Then Calgary, who I think could be a bubble playoff team. Seattle might be an easier way to end off that trip. But, it's 4 games. It's a game every other day from Sunday to Saturday. That's not an easy stretch for Tampa. And it honestly might behoove them to rest Nikita Kucherov an extra night. But it seemed like he was a full go at practice. I did not see a moment where Kucherov, skated off hurt or was favoring a leg or whatever. I mean, he looked fine. It definitely looked like in practice yesterday that Kucherov was a little bit maybe limited, if you want to call it anything. But again, he was participating fully. He was with Gensel and Point on that first line for the majority of the practice. It was interesting to see Gage Gonzalez getting some time with Pointer and Gensel, but Kucherov, I do expect to play. Things might get a little bit different. I'll have updates after the Lightning morning skate later this morning as well on the Locked On Twitter account, LO_Lightning. Definitely make sure to give that a follow as well. But this is a team that the Lightning kind of need to beat. If you're a playoff team, you want to beat the teams like the Sharks, who are on the lower end of the totem pole. You want to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. And breaking it down by just about every metric, on paper, the Lightning are better than San Jose. Now they just have to prove it on the ice. Do I think it's going to end too differently? No, I think the Lightning could win this one going away. But the last time the Lightning had a team towards the bottom of the standings come into Amalie Arena in a game that, frankly, I expected the squad to win, when there were still some guys that were recovering from injuries, that Flyers game that the Lightning lost in a shootout at home against Amalie Arena. I don't think it's going to be another 1-1 after regulation. Shootout goal wins it kind of game. I expect the Lightning to win 4-1 or 4-2, but I expect this game to be squarely in the Lightning's control. And I expect the Lightning to just utilize the fantastic atmosphere they have at Amalie Arena to get under the Sharks' skin and get in their heads. And I think the home rink advantage, home ice advantage can really play a factor here, especially against a team this young. And the Lightning, some of their youngsters are going to be busy on All-Star break. The Four Nations rosters were announced, finalized for Finland, Sweden, America, and Canada. Only Victor Hedman on the two Scandinavian nations representative, as he was one of the initial 6 players named to the Swedish roster. Who else from the Lightning was added to the Four Nations rosters? Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NHL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Josh Sperber back here with you, and let's talk about the Four Nations. No new developments on Finland and Sweden, according to in terms of Lightning players. The Lightning will be facing a Finnish representative on Four Nations in Mikael Granlund. And Victor Hedman was one of the first 6 players named to the Swedish national team for the Four Nations clash that will take place during the All-Star break in February. And Victor Hedman was not a surprising addition to the Sweden roster. Neither was Braden Point, who was one of the initial players named to the Canadian roster when the Four Nations, first 6 players for each of the Four Nations were named back in June. Braden Point will be joined by 2 more Lightning forwards on John Cooper's side, Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel. And though Brandon Hagel did not officially know that he was going to be part of Team Canada during yesterday's practice, he spoke to the media about what it would mean to him to play for the Red and White.
It would be an honor. I don't want to say too much until I know I'm on the team. But that being said, I think obviously I'll just leave it at being able to play for your country is next level and an honor, and I'll play for that flag any day of the week. I'll just leave it at that. And obviously, I think it gets released tonight, and then I'll find out from there.
I'm sure Brandon Hagel's happy, and he's someone that I hope we'll get to talk to between morning skate and the Sharks game later tonight. But I'm really happy that Brandon Hagel was on there. I mean, Anthony Cirelli to me came as a little bit of a surprise, but especially the month of November that he had. I mean, if you look at some of the stats, it's a little bit less surprising. But, you know, when you look at some of the other forwards on this Canadian team, you look at guys like Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Brad Marchand. I mean, you know, Braden Point, Sidney Crosby on Team Canada. These are, you know, some of the guys that are the best players in the NHL. And I don't want to say anything that makes you guys think that I don't think Hagel's a really solid player. Just to me, it seemed like a surprise when given some of the other, you know, top 2 or 3 at their position talent in the NHL, and Cirelli is named on that list. But that being said, I'm really happy for the guy, and I really think that there's no more deserving player. He's just been a grinder for the Lightning. He's a really solid 2-way player, has really good chemistry with Brandon Hagel, who is also on the team. And, you know, he was someone that I was hoping would make Team Canada as well, because both of them have played incredibly. And I have a feeling that John Cooper, being the head coach, Julian Brisebois being part of the front office for Team Canada doesn't hurt either. And also Ryan Hamilton, the mental performance coach for the Lightning, was also named to the staff of Team Canada for the Four Nations. So a whole lot of bolts represented on Team Canada. And one thing that I would really like to see Cooper do, I know it's a little bit out there considering Cirelli doesn't play right wing, but there is a potential for an all Lightning forward line. And I think that would work great. And it would give Cooper a chance to make some line adjustments in the second half of the season if he feels that it worked that well with Team Canada. You know, we'll see how those Four Nations go in a couple of months. But Point, Cirelli, and Hagel on the same line is intriguing to me. And it not just for Four Nations, but also, you know, for Lightning purposes. And it's something that I think Cooper is going to get a good use out of. I definitely think Cirelli and Hagel are going to be on the same line because they do have such great chemistry together. They're both just a combined force when it comes to the penalty kill. And I think that it can help Team Canada if that same kind of chemistry is there. I mean, on these Team Canada rosters, you have so many different sets of teammates. You know, you've got Sam Reinhart and Sam Bennett of Florida. You've got Nathan McKinnon, Devin Taves of the Avalanche. I mean, Travis of the Philadelphia Flyers as well. I mean, there are a lot of teammates that some of them don't match between offense and defense, like the Panthers line, the Panthers duo, and the Lightning trio do. But, you know, there's a lot of players that already have a cause to unite other than just playing for their nation's flag. And I think that's something that Team Canada could certainly utilize. And I think it would definitely help the team if Cirelli and Hagel were on the line, maybe even Cirelli, Point, and Hagel. I mean, if you can do that with a whole trio of teammates, that's not possible in any other way. I don't believe for any other of the four teams that are going to be playing in this face-off on All-Star weekend, on All-Star week. So, you can do a, you know, Cole Makar, Devin Taves line on defense. You can do a Cirelli, Hagel, Point line on offense and just have a bunch of teammates on there. I mean, there's definitely ways I think that can be maximized by the Team Canada crew, but that is not the only country that we can talk about for Four Nations because the United States also revealed their roster. And less surprising revelation was Jake Gensel getting on that U.S. team. And that, you know, when you're looking over the Lightning players and you're looking at the Four Nations in there, the locks were obviously Hedman for Sweden and Point for Canada because they were named in June. But then after that, you look at the rest of the Lightning roster. Gensel seemed inevitable. Hagel, the way he's played this season, certainly elevated his status, and that was the case for Cirelli, who I just wasn't as strongly on my radar as Brandon Hagel was in terms of his chances for Team Canada. But still, you know, these are two guys that you weren't as sure about because there's so much Canadian talent in the NHL. But regardless of the amount of great hockey players from the United States in the National Hockey League, there were a few better from the U.S. than Jake Gensel. Yeah, you know, he's been on 3 different teams in a year, but that doesn't change the quality of his play. And among a lot of the big free agent acquisitions over the course of the offseason, I think it was ESPN or The Athletic, I forget who it was, released a graphic on social media just detailing some of the big free agent signing moves, like Steven Stamkos, who had one of the lower point totals among high-profile signings in 2024. The guy at the top of that list, Jake Gensel, he has been great for Tampa Bay, but surprisingly still 1 point behind Cirelli for third on the team. And that, I think, is just another example why I'm so happy for Cirelli, because he really played his way onto that. I think when the initial 6 rosters were picked back in June, would Gensel still be in strong consideration for the U.S. team? Yes. Would Cirelli and Hagel still be considered as some of the top guys in Canada? That's a bigger question. I still think yes, but I think it's pretty safe to say that in the case of Hagel and Cirelli, the way they open their campaigns in this season, the way that they play on the same line together, I think really they played themselves on to the Canadian roster. They used strong performances at the start of the season to vault themselves ahead of some other great Canadian talent. A lot of high level guys are not going to be playing in the Four Nations, not just because they can't, because they don't belong to one of those other countries, but because of the skill and the quality of Sorelli, Point, Gensel, Hagel, all the Lightning players selected the Four Nations. So belated congratulations again to Braden Point and Victor Hedman, and of course to John Cooper, Julian Brisebois, Ryan Hamilton, as well as Anthony Sorelli and Brandon Hagel for Team Canada, and Jake Gensel for Team US. I know I will be looking forward to seeing those Four Nations face off come February. And it had me thinking about some other players we might see in the Four Nations or other such international tournaments that currently sit on the Lightning. One name I think you'll be able to guess when it comes to future, but there are a couple others that may surprise you. Welcome back into Locked On Lightning. Josh Sperber here. And again, a big congratulations to the new members of Team USA, Team Canada, specifically the ones on the Tampa Bay Lightning, Jake Gensel, Brandon Hagel, Anthony Sorelli, the new player's name. But these things do have me thinking about the future at all points. And I don't think it's something that's uncommon in sports to just look at rookies and younger players and see who might be making an impact for their respective countries going forward. And there is one name that if I'm looking at current Lightning players that could be on a Four Nations roster in the future, that one name comes right to mind, and that's Connor Geekie. Again, just everything we've talked about Geekie so much this season. I really like watching him play and practice. It amazes me that I think every single time I have come to practice for the Lightning this season, the first player out on the ice was Connor Geekie. Every single time. I don't think there is a single player in the league, certainly rookie, but maybe even player, that outworks Connor Geekie. And if you're working that hard at the start of your NHL career, that I think only means good things. I mean, Geekie's 20 years old, so I think it might be a couple of years before he gets to more senior levels of Team Canada. But the Manitoba native did play at the IIHF Junior World Junior Championship, had 5 points in 5 games, 2 goals, 3 assists, and it, I think, was one of the reasons that the Lightning wanted to trade for Connor Geekie. Really solid performance, playing at the highest level for that age for Team Canada, and I don't think it'll be the last stop he makes at the national level. He's certainly a player that I expect to see play for Team Canada in the near future. Could be for it could be for Four Nations, next year, a couple of years, doesn't matter. It could be at any other tournament, but Connor Geekie's a player that I'd expect to play for his national team at one point in his NHL career. And another Canadian native that the age of his is intriguing to, I think, give him a possibility is Gage Gonzalez. He's played 13 NHL games, 11 of which have come this year, as has his only assist. But Gonzalez, I think, as a whole, just hasn't shown me enough. Like, he's definitely shown flashes that he can be a really solid player. Is he going to be elite enough to get on to Team Canada? I'm just not sure yet. I mean, I think I just need to see more of Gage Gonzalez, because even though he has gotten some significant minutes for the Lightning, he averages 13 minutes a game in terms of time on ice. And, do I expect him to blossom into an elite player? I don't know. I mean, it's certainly a possibility. And the way that the Lightning, can raise and develop their homegrown players, like Gage Gonzalez, second rounder in 2020, I think will certainly aid his development and aid his potential as his career moves on, depending on how long he stays with the Lightning. But I think he's someone that you got to keep in mind because of the simple fact that he's 23 years old, and there's just a lot of upside for someone of that age. But he got some minutes with the first line in practice yesterday, so he might be moving around. It could be, him filling in with Kucherov potentially on the injured list. Still, he might not be able to make it against the Sharks. It could just be rotating some of the younger guys to play with some of the vets. Like it wasn't made clear what put Gonzalez on that line, but he proved that he can play with anybody. And, it might be a minute before he realizes his full potential, but I think Gonzalez could be a solid player. And he is someone that I would not be surprised to see representing the red and white of Canada at the international level in the future. And the United States, Lightning don't have a whole lot of American players on their team. Ryan McDonough, I think, could have been eligible for this if he was still in his 20s. But Mitchell Chaffee is someone who has caught my eye this season. He's a hardworking guy. He's not going to dazzle you with anything. He's not outstanding. I mean, I don't think there's a specific attribute of the game that really stands out for him. He's just one of those players that can do everything just really well. It's good two-way guy, good top 6, top 9 kind of forward. And I mean, yeah, his numbers certainly don't scream elite. The 26-year-old has been in the NHL for parts of 3 seasons now, with 2 games played for the Wild, and then he went to the Lightning and has played almost exclusively in the NHL with 30 games last year for the Bolts and 20 games already this season exclusively on the first team after the Lightning signed him as a free agent in 2023. Now, again, this isn't a guy who I'm thinking is going to have some star turn at 26 or 27. He's not, I don't know if he's going to turn into one of those elite players, but if we're looking at potentials for Team USA, obviously, I think Chaffee needs to show you more, particularly in the points department. Might need to get a little bit more aggressive on the offensive side, but he's another solid two-way forward that the Lightning have, and could be just a shift filler at the very least on Team USA. Like, he definitely has a lot of attributes that I think are valued at any level, especially at the elite level that he plays at. So I think if there's anyone else that's got a chance on Team USA, it's going to be Mitchell Chaffee. But I am excited to see Jake Gensel for Team USA, and then obviously Cirelli, Hagel, and Point for Team Canada. And Nick Paul was another name that I was thinking about. I honestly think that Nick Paul maybe could have beaten out Cirelli, because up until the point of the injury, they were, both such high-level producers for Tampa. I think the injury could have taken him off of the Canada roster for Nick Paul. But, he's 29 now. He's someone that maybe could get himself a spot. I think his age, same thing with Mikey Eyssimont, because I really like the way that Eyssimont plays, and he's really been improving in the last couple of games. And he was someone else that, he's 28 years old, and that might just be, once he realizes his full potential, once he's had a lot of time in the NHL, it might be too late for him age-wise to get on the team when United States is just continuing to put out so many elite hockey players. And it could be the same thing for Nick Paul. I think that if Paul were still healthy coming into this, I think there's a very real chance that he could have been one of the players on Team Canada. But I think the injury really took him out of that. But I think the one thing you can lock down from this last segment of Locked On Lightning is that Connor Geekie will play for Team Canada at the highest levels. Whether it's in another Four Nations down the road or, some other kind of international play, Connor Geekie, I truly believe, has the skills to be a star. And if he continues to work as hard as he can, it will be evident in his play for the Tampa Bay Lightning and then down the road for Team Canada as well. I will have updates on today's game against the Shark after morning skate. You can visit our X account at LO_Lightning. My personal account is at Josh_Sperber as well. Please feel free to follow me, and please give us a like, subscribe, and a follow on whatever platform you listen to your podcast, be it YouTube, Spotify, Apple. We really appreciate your guys' support because we do this for you. And as I sign off, I want to thank all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steel and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And make sure to do the same with Locked On Lightning and give us a follow and a subscribe and a couple likes if you haven't already. But thank you all again for tuning in, and hopefully we'll be talking about a Bolts win tomorrow. Have a great day.